every time I download something on my computer, I worry if there's going to be a virus and it's going to make my computer crash, and which means my publisher doesn't get this when they might want it. It's an annoyance. You know, as I was saying earlier today, 15 years ago, there was this country called the Soviet Union that had on the order of 15,000 nuclear warheads on ballistic launchers pointed at this country. They're not around anymore. Okay, so to worry about cyber terrorism, all this other stuff, it's like worrying about a mosquito when you just killed a vampire bat. And all cyber terrorism, all forms of terrorism really are just a buzzing mosquito in a world that used to be replete with vampire bats. The bats are gone. And everybody's saying, "Oh my God, there's a mosquito." Well, a mosquito's an annoyance. It's not a deadly threat. You know what the Japanese proved in Tokyo when that lunatic group released chemical weapons was that chemical weapons are actually very inefficient. They're nowhere near as efficient, for example, as explosive devices. You know, chemical weapons and biological weapons are psychological rather than physical weapons. You know, they frighten people rather than kill them. In that sense, they're very efficient. But in terms of doing actual damage to a society, they're not terribly efficient. So is that a threat we have to take seriously? Yes, certainly it is. But I'd worry more about, for example, nuclear terrorism. I worry more about some lunatic, getting a nuclear device into America than somebody bringing a bucket full of gas and then probably spilling it on himself and killing himself as a result. Chemical and biological weapons are, by their very nature, extremely inefficient. And it's the efficient weapons you worry about, not the inefficient ones. Well, I mean, the most theatrical part of counterterrorism operations are the guys with the guns, but they're not the important ones. It's the guys with the ears who are the important ones, because you can be the most dangerous person with a gun in the world since Davy Crockett, but if you're not in the right place and you don't know who to shoot at, you're not going to accomplish very much. So the most important people in the whole organization are the ones who gather the information. That's done with espionage agents in the field. It's done with electronic surveillance and electronic espionage measures like it's done by the National Security Agency at Fort Meade. It's done in many different ways, but the most important guys are the guys who gather the information. According to James Adams, who's the London Times, a pretty good reporter, a guy who knows international security affairs very, very well, he says the American FBI has been the most successful counter-terrorist agency in the world for the simple reason we haven't had a major terrorist operation in America. I mean, you have Timothy McVeigh blowing up Oklahoma and all that, but he was one lunatic, and it's kind of hard to defend yourself against a single lunatic. So far, we've done fairly well. Part of that's been luck. Part of that's been the fact we've got this 3,000 miles of water on both sides of our country to protect us against people. But also, the FBI has been a very efficient law enforcement agency, and of course, we treat terrorism not as a political or not as warfare, but as a kind of crime. And the FBI is a pretty good police force. The problem is not going to go away, and sooner or later the bad guys are going to get lucky. But so far I think America's done fairly well, and will probably continue to do well, because we've had good people out there working for us on a day-to-day basis. Well, the problem with non-lethal weapons, although it's nice to be able to neutralize somebody without killing him, is, from a technical point of view, the human body is a very hardy organism. And to incapacitate a human being rapidly without doing really serious physical harm to him is a very difficult goal to accomplish. I mean, there are ways that there's one weapon, you can use a very bright light, for example, to blind a guy. But most people would rather be dead than be blinded, permanently blinded. There is such technology out there. Its applications, or the utility of such a device, is very scenario specific. If you've got a guy standing in the middle of a parking lot all by himself, that's one thing. If a fellow's in a daycare center with a bunch of little kids, that's something else. So I don't think we're not going to get away from lethal weapons for the simple reason that some people can only be turned off by a bullet in the head. Your first line of defense against terrorism is good intelligence. And so if you want to develop a really capable counter-terrorist capability, what you have to develop is an organization like CIA or National Security Agency, somebody who can gather the information you need so you can prevent the incidents from happening in the first place. If it just means knocking on their door and saying, don't go to Switzerland today because if you go there, somebody's going to be waiting for you. That's a successful counter-terrorist operation. You don't have to kill people to be successful. Success means it doesn't happen. That means gathering information to let people know that if they start, something bad is going to happen to them, maybe they shouldn't do it. Deterrence means that a guy thinks twice before doing something for fear of getting hurt. I've been down to Quantico with the FBI hostage rescue team, and I would not want those guys shooting at me because they are very, very good at what they do. I mean, what Jack Nicholas does with a 5-iron, these guys do with firearms. They fire 500 rounds a week each to practice to stay current. They're very, very scary people if you're a bad guy. If you're a good guy, it's nice to know they're around. In Britain, they have the SAS. They're probably the best in the world because they get the most work. And you don't want people like this chasing after you because you're going to get hurt if it happens. When I was discussing Rainbow Six with a friend of mine who's formerly a senior official in the FBI, he remarked to me that he'd made a proposal to the U.S. government some years earlier that a multinational organization like Rainbow should be established to deal with that particular threat. And he also suggested it be based in Britain because it's easy, because of the way British Airways is organized. It's the easiest place in the world to get into and out of very rapidly. And also the Brits with the Special Air Service at Hereford and Wales have the best counter-terrorist operation in the whole world because they get the most work and they have the most experience. So we want to draw upon that. So is such a thing possible? Yes. It hasn't happened yet. I really don't know why, except maybe the international terrorist threat just isn't as bad as people like me make it into.